Like people and companies, sovereign can struggle to repay their debts. Edward III of England went to banking dynasties of Florence, Italy when he ran out of money to pay for the Hundred Years' War with France. They provided him with enormously expensive debts, which Edward was unable to fully repay when he failed to become the King of France. Hence, the sovereign's debt evolved into sovereign debt over time, becoming the multi-trillion-dollar international multi-currency network of debt commitments that we are familiar with today. When a nation is unable to repay its debt and faces the potential of defaulting on debts, this is known as the sovereign debt crisis. High level of borrowing, slow economic development, and political instability are all factors that contribute to this catastrophe. To fund spending that exceeds what they can or wish to raise through ordinary taxation, governments borrow. This is driven by a number of economic factors. Government will borrow to cover ongoing spending commitments when tax revenues are low, such as during a recession. This prevents the government from being obliged to decrease spending at a time when the economy is already fragile, which could worsen the situation and is better for the continuity of public services like hospitals and schools. Now, sovereigns do have options of borrowing both locally and globally. Domestic borrowing can be a consistent and dependable source of funding, whether it comes from consumer directly or from nearby banks and asset managers by issuing government bonds. But domestic funds are frequently few, and payback terms are frequently brief. So governments therefore borrow from global finance markets as well, but in bigger sum and typically with longer maturities. Yet these marketplaces can be unpredictable, particularly for nations with lesser income. Several private sector organizations also provide loans to sovereigns. Government debt is usually held by asset managers, including a pension fund or sovereign wealth fund. Asset management giants like BlackRock and Vanguard are one of the biggest money lenders to nations across the world on behalf of their clients. Like people and companies, sovereign can struggle to repay their debts. This could be because they borrowed too much or in a way that was too risky, or because they were hit by unexpected shock such as deep recession or a natural disaster. In these circumstances, the sovereign government needs to restructure its debt. But unlike people and companies, there is no bankruptcy court for sovereigns that can compel the debtor and its creditor to resolve the issue. Instead, it becomes a negotiation. Creditors want to recover as much money as they can possibly, while the sovereign government wants to regain normal status in financial market without paying too much. These restructurings are often costly for both the debtor and for creditors. This makes them relatively rare event. Well-known examples include Russia in 1998, Argentina in 2005 and 2020, Greece in 2012 and Ukraine in 2015, Sri Lanka in 2022. And Pakistan and Egypt are on the verge of a debt default. Costs are normally much smaller when an agreement can be reached before a sovereign defaults by missing a payment on its debt. These preemptive restructurings are usually resolved quickly and have smaller spillover effect to the rest of the economy and financial system. But once a sovereign default on its debt, the subsequent restructuring process can be long and expensive and has a bigger spillover effect on the whole economy.